In June 1947, Ambassador to the UN from Guatemala, Jorge Garcia Granados, went to Palestine as a member of UNSCOP, the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine. He would be one of UNSCOP's most pro-Zionist members. Years later, he disclosed the reason.
It was my sense of the tremendous importance of this kibbutz experiment that was later to strengthen my determination to defend with all my vigor the right of the Jews to a state. For me, this reason, which deals with the future of all mankind, would have been paramount.
Granados was not alone in his admiration for the kibbutz. For decades, it would remain the most prominent icon of Zionism. Degania, the first kibbutz, was established by 10 men and 2 women on the Sea of Galilee in 1909. As one historian relates,
"They had no ideology at the outset, except a desire to create a new Jewish society and a determination to work the land independently, without supervisors or bosses."
Degania established most of the defining characteristics of the future kibbutz: the worship of physical labor, equality between members, equality between the sexes, and communal ownership. Private property was rejected. This included even the clothes on their backs. Melford Spiro, author of a seminal work on the kibbutz, wrote,
"This created highly ludicrous situations, such as tall persons having to wear short pants, or slender persons being forced to wear large dresses. This system was modified at the insistence of the women."
To emancipate women from the chores of child-raising, children were brought up in separate sleeping quarters and placed in the hands of trained child care workers. Kibbutz members themselves saw the kibbutz as not only the spearhead of Zionism, but the model for the social organization of all mankind. As one kibbutz leader put it,
"The kibbutz is the foundation cell of the future society. It has carried out a complete revolution of life and has changed the ancient order of human social living."
Kibbutzim were often placed in dangerous areas to help win territory for the future Jewish state. Kibbutzim were also closely identified with the Palmach, the elite strike force of the Haganah, the underground army of the Yishuv. As a result, in 1948, the kibbutz was at its peak in influence, prestige, and relative size, accounting for 7.5% of the Yishuv population. When the state was declared that year, a third of the government were kibbutz members, as well as many military commanders. But the public's high esteem for the kibbutz would soon decline. Despite Ben-Gurion's pleas, the kibbutzim failed to contribute significantly to the absorption of the huge wave of new immigrants who had fled Arab countries. Although short of workers, the kibbutzim stood by their ideology, which opposed using hired labor. Another reason for its decline in prestige was the spectacle of ugly splits within the kibbutzim themselves. Was Stalin the son of the nations or a vicious tyrant? In Kibbutz Ein Harod, bitter ideological conflict led to the kibbutz being literally split down the middle, with barbed wire dividing the dining hall. Eventually, economic realities trumped ideology. To make ends meet, kibbutzim were forced to create industries, many of them labor-intensive. By 1965, kibbutzim had 10,000 hired workers, 19% of their total workforce. By 1980, almost half of kibbutz income came from industry. As the kibbutz no longer served as the Zionist vanguard, members began to look inward. Benko Adar, a columnist of the socialist-Zionist paper Al HaMishmar, wrote of the kibbutz.
"Today, our task, that of the younger generation, is to build a society enabling each person to realize himself, to fulfill the potential of his personality."
At a 1971 kibbutz conference, when someone raised the question, who would be left to work in the cowshed, a member responded in a way unthinkable to an earlier generation.
"If no one wants to work in the cowshed, there won't be a cowshed. The cowshed exists for me, not I for the cowshed."
In 1985, kibbutzim suffered a major blow. They had overexpanded their industry with the help of borrowed capital. When inflation, which had reached an annual rate of 400%, was finally brought under control, they found themselves $6 billion in debt, a sum they couldn't possibly repay. The 1985 experience led to a general feeling that things could not continue as before. In 1993, Yehuda Harel, a member of kibbutz Marom HaGolan, published a book, The New Kibbutz. it sparked a huge debate. Harel argued that the kibbutz economy should be separated from the kibbutz community. Factories, farms, and other assets would be run by professionals for a profit. That same year, a kibbutz for the first time linked effort and reward. Kibbutz Ein Sivan attempted to establish a differential wage system. Paying members on the basis of the economic value of their labor struck at the heart of the basic kibbutz value that all members should be treated equally. Ein Sivan was seen as crossing a line, and the kibbutz movement to which it belonged threatened it with expulsion. Yet Ein Sivan had the last word. A 2010 study found that 3/4 of kibbutzim no longer paid members equally. In addition, many of Yehuda Harel's ideas have been adopted, with kibbutz businesses run along professional lines. Some kibbutzim have even privatized their factories and issued shares to their members. The kibbutz has changed so much that in May 2002, the Israeli government formed a special committee to determine if the kibbutz could still even be called a kibbutz. The kibbutz may have been transformed, but it still makes an outsized contribution to Israel's economy. In 2009, although a mere 2.1% of the Jewish population, kibbutzim provided 40% of Israel's agriculture, 7% of its industrial output, 9% of its industrial export, and 10% of its tourist revenue. As for the future, Daniel Gavron, author of The Kibbutz, Awakening from Utopia, predicts that the kibbutzim will continue to exist as settlements. They will still contribute to Israel out of all proportion to their size. They will not be kibbutzim.